Hello, Treadwell Eagles. It's good to see you. We're going to be talking about climate change today in this video. And so, as a reminder, you'll be watching this video, and then there's a quiz link in the description below that you can click on and complete once you are done with this video. All right, let's get started. So let's talk about some patterns of climate change, because when we think about climate change, I think sometimes we think immediately about the human impacts on climate change, but there are some natural cycles and patterns of climate change that we see in the world. One of them is sun cycles. So in sun cycles, essentially what happens is there are periods of time where there's different amounts of heat energy transmitted from the sun. And it's dependent on these things called sunspots. And based on the number of sunspots at that time will determine the amount of sunlight energy that reaches the earth and stays there. There's also El Nino and La Nina, which are two seasons that are interconnected and they rotate between each other. These are pictured on the right. The El Nino, you can see in the middle here, has kind of a red strip, and that is indicating a high temperature, a high water temperature. Whereas the La Nina has a blue strip indicating low water temperature. So in La Nina seasons, typically we get colder temperatures, and El Nino seasons, we get warmer temperatures. And again, these cycle back and forth and can be like 9-month periods, 12-month periods, depending on just the year and the season and the time. We also have ice ages, which are not as consistent as El Ninos, La Ninas, but they are sporadic across history. But they do happen over and again, which is why they're called patterns. So essentially what an ice age is it's when the whole Earth's land, most of the Earth's landmass is covered in ice, as opposed to just the North and the South Pole, but almost the whole Earth is covered in ice. And scientists really don't know why this happens. They just know over history we've seen evidence of ice ages occurring. There's some other natural causes of climate change that aren't necessarily patterns. So the shifting of tectonic plates, this is a big one. Essentially, when the Earth first evolved, it was in one landmass called Pangaea. And as the tectonic plates in the Earth have shifted, we've got different continents. Like Africa moved away from South America, right? That's how we get the Atlantic Ocean, that divide. North America moved away from Europe. And as they've moved away, naturally they're going to have different climates because their proximity to the equator is going to be different, and so their temperatures are going to be different. There's also things like volcanic eruptions and asteroid impacts, things that release particulate matter. Think about little particles that are released, and they aren't as long lasting as, say, like the shifting of the tectonic plates, but they do impact an area, whether that's cloud formation, the rain quality that comes down. Like potentially we could get some acid rain. So temporarily it kind of impacts the climate in that way. And those are natural causes of climate change. Now we have the greenhouse effect, which is something that's natural, but humans have interfered with this over time. What the greenhouse effect is, it's the process by which gases in the atmosphere absorb and radiate energy as heat back from the Earth. So essentially when the rays of the sun enter the Earth's atmosphere, they get trapped, the heat gets trapped by the greenhouse gases, like carbon dioxide and others. And basically, seen the global warming occur, which is the gradual increase in average global temperature. We've seen some correlation with the number of greenhouse gases, or the amount of greenhouse gas that's in the atmosphere, and the increasing temperature. And so there's a scientific thought and understanding that there's a correlation here. And that's partially due to two main things, fossil fuels and deforestation. So after the Industrial Revolution was a big marker in history where factories started to be formed. Coal, natural gas, oil were three types of fossil fuels that really started to be used more, particularly coal. And what scientists have found is they've been keeping stats and research on carbon dioxide levels and global temperature. One thing that we know is the carbon forms of fossil fuels, when we burn them, they're releasing carbon dioxide. If we look at this graph on the right, carbon dioxide levels increase in a correlating pattern with the global temperatures, right? So scientists have used this to make the conclusion that because we're producing lots of carbon dioxide through fossil fuels and deforestation, we're having an increase in global temperature. And deforestation, the reason this contributes to global warming and climate change is because, as we've learned about, right, trees and other plants, they're going to take in what? They take in carbon dioxide, right? And they breathe out oxygen. Carbon dioxide is one of those greenhouse gases that traps that heat in. And deforestation is where forests are basically being cut down. And so this is happening particularly in South America in the Amazon forest, where trees are getting cut down daily, just large amounts of trees being cut down. And so that is allowing there to be more carbon dioxide in the environment. It's not necessarily producing more carbon dioxide, but it's not eliminating carbon dioxide as it usually would. So that's a big problem right now. And groups are trying to come together and plant trees and create policy to stop deforestation. But if you think about it, cutting down a tree, you know, that's years and years of growth. And so if you're planting more trees, that's going to take, 50 plus years to really catch up to where we were at. And so it is a big issue, deforestation. And the hope is that it doesn't go too far. All right, again, click the link in the description for the quiz and complete that on your own, see how you do. As a reminder, we're keeping track of who's submitting and which classes are having the most participation, and there will be some prizes. So get those quizzes done.